Okay. So, I haven't worked on this since the last video. Before I get started, I'm going to slip in a picture here real quick of what the water looked like, the cleaning fluid looked like after I got I ran this thing through the ultrasonic cleaner. So what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to start wiring this, and I got some of this stuff to put around the wire. It actually expands pretty big, so I'm going to mount the E-unit and the motor, and then we're going to wire it in the train. I have this, but I have since learned that it's basically just a generic wiring diagram. It's not specifically for the 700E, so we'll see what happens. To try and keep the video short, I'm not going to show every little step so I'm not going to show you putting the E-unit back on or the motor, but I probably will show the wiring. So we're going to pause for here. Okay, I'm back. Having a little trouble reading this schematic and making it work with the locomotive. Part of the issue is that the E-unit on this machine has this going to ground, which obviously you can't do because this is going to the center pickups. What I'm probably going to do is I'm not really sure exactly how this is going to work. I'm going to wire up everything else but the E-unit at this time, and then we'll work out what to do with this. I may have to disconnect it from the where it wires up. See, it has one side of the coil going here, and as you can see, that's the chassis, which is ground. But yet it has the other side of the coil going out through a wire through this switch to ground. Well, if ground is the chassis and you turn on the switch, nothing will happen, because you'll have both sides to ground. You can't have both sides to ground. So what I'm thinking of doing is running this kind of backwards, or if I really want to make it match the schematic, I'm going to have to disconnect this and do it the way the schematic says, and that's what I may end up doing. Also, some things I'm going to do is, even though this light bulb is wired up and you'll be able to put in a regular light bulb, I have one of these units, and what this is a what do I call it? It's an LED, but it's an LED that I got off of some kind of train supplier, and the way it works is it can work off of AC or DC. It can work whether the polarity is reversed. And let's see if we can make this work without shorting something out. So let's put this in here and this in there, and you see that it lights up. and it's got a natural yellow light. You'll see I've got here, this is DC power. Whoa! And we got red and black. I'm going to reverse them. And it still lights up. And how does it do that? Well, and I'm going to put a link in the description on where you can get these. You can make them yourself, but it's kind of fiddly. The parts they use are very tiny. You can do it with bigger circuit boards, but you'll see there's a little square here. And what that is there's a very small bridge rectifier. There's a small capacitor, electrolytic, or not electrolytic, but one that has polarity. I don't know if it's electrolytic. And a small resistor to limit the current. And this little LED will work off of any voltage from 7 to 19 volts. I have found that it actually works off of even lower voltage. And how I'm going to hook it up is, once the train is put back together, I'm just going to put this inside where the lens is for the light bulb. I'm just going to put that in there. I probably will put a very tiny dab of hot glue just to hold it in place. Not enough to, make a big mess, but just enough to keep it there. And then if whoever gets this in the future, if they don't like this, all they have to do is basically remove it. That's it. Put in a light bulb, put in the old-fashioned light bulb, and you're back to normal. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start by, we're going to wire up the what do they call them? Where did my paperwork go? We're going to wire up the brushes, and the brushes are the two yellow wires. So you can see I put them in this handy dandy little, whatever you call it, sleeve. And so we're going to need one that goes to here, and we're going to need one that goes down to here. And the idea, I believe, for this is that the whole thing can be lifted out without having to desolder too much. You remove the screws and the motor, and it just all lifts out. That's what I've seen. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but we're going to try. So we're going to cut this right here. Drop an important spring on the ground. Oh, there's my paperwork. Let's get that out of the way. So we're gonna... Now this wire is probably a little bit heavier than it needs to be. But I'd rather have it be heavier than very thin. This locomotive pulls a surprising amount of amperage for what it is. I don't know if that's just the nature of the beast or because it was rather dirty and possibly not lubricated. Hot, 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 hot. Okay. So that's one. Get that out of the way and that out of the way. One of the things I did was I got the I got the motor on, I had to grind down one of the couplings. It was just a little too long, and it was causing the pushing the motor to the armature back, and the armature needs to be as center floating as it can be. So I ground it down, and I'll show you here in a second. Shouldn't have had all that coffee this morning. I ground it down so that, let's go in. Don't know how well I'll be able to see that, but I wanted it so that the flat pieces just touched this piece of rubber. Yes, I know it's not round on the outside, but it doesn't really need to be. But I didn't want these these metal fingers touching the other plate. You wanted it so that there's a little bit of play in here, and it acts as a shock absorber. And then there had to have been, you want the motor to be as close to the center as you can get, and I may have to adjust that a little more. I have a small amount of leeway. I can move everything forward just a little bit. These are keyed, and if you slide them too far forward, they come off the keys. Okay, so we have the yellow wires going from the fingers on the E-unit drum to the brushes. Now the next thing it shows on here is that we have one side of this going to the field, and the other side goes to ground, but it has it grounded on the motor, and that's not what's going on here. So what we have is we have a black wire that comes from the one side of the one finger, and this is supposed to go to the field, and the other one and then the other side goes to ground. Now it has one side of the coil going to here, which is the same place as the other side of the E-unit switch. Basically, this will always be on. So, because you need your field winding always on, or else the motor won't turn. It looks like I'm going to have to, because they had a wire coming up and going to here, and oh boy, this is It would have been nice if this hadn't have been all, the E unit hadn't been bypassed, so I could see how it was originally wired. But it was all cut. Let's see, what other things can we wire up with? We have the one side of the coil, which is supposed to go to ground. I'm gonna have to, okay, I may have to call it quits on this for today, maybe even the weekend. I'm not sure if you see this right on YouTube and it ends here. I had too many other things to do. So here's the deal. I don't know the correct wiring. This wiring diagram is not correct for this engine, and I need a real 700E wiring diagram. This is what it does so far, and I just kind of have it kludged together. If I touch this wire to here, the E unit energizes, and then you touch it, nothing happens. So I touch it here, and it goes in forward position. Touch it again, neutral, touch it again, goes in reverse. So the E unit is working, but the wiring is wrong, or it's wonky, I don't know. And I have to do my taxes today. So we're going to disconnect this from power, and I'll have to work on it later. I definitely need to post. I'm going to be posting on the railroad forum. I gotta have a real wiring diagram. That's it for now. Okay, well, did my taxes. That took 2.5 hours. So what I was going to do is, I can't find the wiring diagram. No one's responded to my post. So I thought, oh, I have this 701 or 227 switcher. Gosh, it's got the same motor in it. It's got a light. I bet it's wired exactly the same as the 700E. I can use that. So I opened it up, and this is the one we're talking about. No, I can't use it. But that's going to be for a later video, because once again, somebody had to mess with this. That's all I'm going to say. We'll leave that for another video. So, I'm going to go out and look where I have all of my dad's stuff stored and see. He had a couple of other locomotives that were old Lionel, and I'm going to see if I can find one of them, and hopefully it hasn't been messed with. I'll be back. Well, I went out there and went through as much of the storage stuff as I could, and couldn't find. He had a Lionel locomotive that one side was all rotted out from the die-cast metal. It corroded somehow. Don't know what happened to it. Don't know if I sold it. Don't know if he threw it away. Unrelated to this project, but I couldn't find the American Flyer locomotive. I don't remember if I sold that one either. If I had, it was a couple of years ago. And I mean, I did find some other stuff that's useful, just not right now. So what I'm going to do is set this aside until I can find a wiring diagram that I can use. And take a quick look at the next project. So that's it for this one for now.